Hello there, this is the 6th edition on News Central TV. We're broadcasting live from our studios in Abuja. I'm Neo Taigbe. Welcome. Our top stories. Power supply disrupted nationwide as national grid collapses. Former River State Governor Nyesom Wike says Fubara free to join APC, but warns that defection won't guarantee election victory. UN mission reveals dire conditions in Sudan's El-Fasher after RSF takeover. We'll bring you details in a moment. Nigeria's national electricity grid experienced a collapse on Monday afternoon, December the 29th, resulting in a nationwide blackout as power outage plummeted to nearly zero. National electricity output crashed to a meager 50 megawatts, representing only a tiny fraction of the thousands of megawatts needed to power the country. The collapse was a near total, with 9 out of 11 electricity distribution companies receiving 0 megawatts of power. Only Abuja and Ibadan had minimal activity, receiving just 20 megawatts and 30 megawatts respectively, leaving major industrial hubs like Lagos, Kano and Port Harcourt without any supply. Out of party politics, FCT Minister Nyesom Wike has accused some PDP members of trying to destroy the party while blaming them for claims that he's pushing for a one-party state. Speaking in Port Harcourt, Mr. Wike said some party leaders are undermining internal democracy. He pointed to Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde accusing him of sidelining key members during a meeting in Lagos. Mr. Wike warned that some internal divisions threaten the PDP's unity and future strength.
Something that would have been easily solved. Listen to the voice of elders. Don't go ahead. Let's form caretaker committee. Today, PDP has no candidate in Ekiti State. Today, PDP has no candidate in Osun State. Now, when you say one-party state, who is making us have a one-party state? If you have listened to people and allowed due process to take place, would the issue of one-party state arise? You are the one who is creating one-party state, and yet they are accusing the government of trying to have a one-party state. Just listen to what people have said and follow due process. By now, you wouldn't have been talking about one-party state. Now, having taken wrong steps that is destroying your party, you are now accusing the other party of wanting to have a one-party state. It doesn't make sense. People have gone to court to say, look, you can't go ahead with this convention. Why would you not go ahead with convention? So many states have not had their congresses. How will you deny states of participating in the national convention? You have 36 states. About 16 states have not had any congresses. And therefore, they are not eligible to vote in that convention. 16 states. And people went to court and said, no, you cannot do this. Let's follow due process. Take, for example, you want to do zoning. I'm a minister of the Federal Republic. We have senators from the south. What Seyi Makinde did was to call a few people and take them to Lagos and said that, that they have zoned the offices that came to the south. How would you do that? How will you disqualify very prominent members of the party? Is this ambition I'm talking about? Is this ambition? And people say, look, it is not going to be possible. If things are not done correctly, this way is going to lead us. And that was why they now formed this elders committee to look into the matter and bring us suggestions on the way.
Meanwhile, the FCT minister used the occasion to break his silence over the defection of the River State Governor Siminalayi Fubara to the APC. According to him, his approval is not required, but he warned that defection doesn't guarantee victory in 2027. Mr. Wike described Fubara's move from the PDP to the APC as natural, something others had done before. And the Kano State chapter of the New Nigeria People's Party, NNPP, has urged its members to drop their plans of defecting to the APC. This comes just 24 hours after rumors spread about a mass defection led by the governor, Abba Yusuf. In a pre-recorded statewide broadcast, NNPP chairman Hashim Suleiman Dugunrawa called on members to stay loyal and dismissed rumors of a feud between the top NNPP leaders and national leader Rabiu Kwankwaso.
The NNPP party in Kano State, and the national level, and all the segments of this blaze movement, such as CRC, Life Journey, Kano Profa, Konkosia, our teaming youths and women, and patriotic citizens, I wish to inform you that we are aware of the development happening here in Kano State concerning some individual who intend to defect to the APC. I want to make it clear that the Kano State Party, NNPP, and the National Party and our national leader, Senator Rabiu Kwankwaso, together with the other leaders, do not approve of what is happening. In fact, we did everything within our power to pursue them to be patient and not in fact to the APC because of our responsibility to them and our responsibility to the people of Kano State. However, that has become difficult. Therefore, on behalf of all of us, collectively, we once again appeal to them for the sake of Allah and that of Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, not to leave this party and not to defect to the party that we have a force and which the masses and other voters have rejected. Our hope is that they will remain in this party in order to help those who are suffering and to improve education, agriculture, commerce, and other sectors as provided for.
Now to some news that's not so good, away from party politics. British boxing and Nigerian star Anthony Joshua was involved in a road accident on Monday along the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway near Shagamu, resulting in 2 fatalities, that's according to the local police. The former 2-time heavyweight champion sustained only minor injuries and was taken to a hospital for medical attention. The police confirmed the crash occurred after a tire burst, causing the vehicle Joshua was traveling in to lose control and collide with a stationary truck. Anthony Joshua was seated in the back of the vehicle at the time of the accident. Authorities say investigations are ongoing with an official police statement expected as fans await further updates on Joshua's condition. And I'm being joined by News Central sports editor Babatunde Koiki from our Lagos studio to discuss how the sporting fraternity is seeing the fatal accident. Tunde? Babatunde, can you hear me?
Can you hear me, Nyota?
Yes, I can hear you. So what's the sports world? I know that there's been a lot of reaction on social media and from around the world, but what are the vibes you're getting from the sporting family about this accident?
Well, it's been one of shock all across the world. The fact that this happened and he seemed to be injured was also met with a lot of trepidation by a lot of people. Initially, nobody was sure exactly to the extent of his injuries, but when videos started circulating online where he seemed to be extricated from the damaged vehicle, grimacing in pain, but obviously without any seemingly major injuries, I think the whole world, the whole boxing world heaved a collective sigh of relief. But unfortunately, 2 of his very close associates tragically lost their lives in the accident. What saved Anthony Joshua was he seemed to have been sitting directly behind the driver while the other 2 gentlemen who were in the passenger side in front at the back bore the tremendous brunt of the accident and were killed instantly on the spot. Their bodies have been evacuated to a live morgue, while we hear that Joshua and the driver were also taken to an undisclosed hospital. Unconfirmed reports say that Joshua might be flown out of Nigeria tonight in order to receive further medical examination and care. But like you asked, the collective response from across the world is one of a collective sigh of relief.
Okay, so the other question, I mean, everyone had just been very excited about Joshua's return to the ring and to winning ways. And then he also seeing that and knowing that in recent times, Joshua had always talked about his Nigerian roots and how much he loves to spend, especially during the festive periods. This is least suspected that this could be happening to Joshua. But what do you think can be done in terms of ensuring that this kind of incident, I mean, I don't know, I wouldn't know what the truck parked by the roadside looked like if there were any signs at all around that area, because there are caution signs that are supposed to be placed at least 50 meters from that truck. What kind of information do you have about that?
What we were told, the truck was not parked directly on the expressway or the highway. It was parked on the hard shoulder. It was definitely not an obstacle on the highway. It was parked off the major highway on the hard shoulder. Now, if you've ever driven on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway or any of the major highways in Nigeria, what happens is it's the slowest vehicles who drive on the fast lane, leaving people trying to overtake on the slow lane. Now, we're not exactly sure if the driver was trying to perform an overtaking maneuver, but what we do hear from the official sources, including the Traffic Enforcement and Compliance Agency of Ogun State, TRACE, and the FRSC, was that the tire of the SUV that Joshua was traveling in ruptured on high speed. They have blamed over speeding for this particular incident. And when in the case where there's overspeeding, there's usually a loss of control of the vehicle. And unfortunately, that was what happened. Now, in order to probably mitigate or prevent these kind of issues from happening, there must be strict compliance and enforcement on traffic rules. It is the outer lane, the outermost lane, the one closest to the median, is meant for faster vehicles who are trying to move along as quickly as possible. Major trucks, articulated vehicles, heavy-duty machinery always seem to hug that side of the road, which shouldn't be. Then there should always be clearly delineated signs showing that this vehicle is parked or is definitely not moving, so that drivers can also see that and also take precaution as well. Then there's also very interesting fact that it was the emergency services, the ambulances didn't get there on time. It was the police who must be commended. We heard that they got there as within minutes of the accident. We don't know for certain if they were passing by or they were alerted, but we must commend them as well. They got there as quickly as possible. The Federal Road Safety Commission was also involved. The Traffic Compliance and Enforcement Agency of Ogun State, all three agencies collaborated to ensure that Anthony Joshua was extricated as quickly as possible. And there was also a lot of goodwill from onlookers and pedestrians who saw exactly what happened. But there must also be a very important case for cordoning off these accident zones. There were more people mobile phones trying to catch a recording of Anthony Joshua than people who are trying to help, which should it be? It's very important that agency services must be on top of their game. Every time, fortunately, the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway is one that is quite prone to a lot of vehicular accidents. Every day in the news we hear 10 died, 5 died, head-on collision. It is an appalling situation, considering the fact that it's one of the busiest highways in Nigeria, and always particularly prone to accidents. So the emergency services must be on their game. They must also learn how to manage accident scenes as properly as possible. Evacuation for injured and the dead must also be conducted as speedily and as professionally as possible.
But Tunde, if I may come in here, Tunde, there are two things you've mentioned that are very vital. Tunde, if I may come in here, two things you've mentioned that are major areas of concern, especially in the area of use of Nigerian roads. One is the lane discipline and education. At what level of speed do you need to move from the outer lane to the inner lane to the service lane? How do you maneuver that and move? That's one side. The other matter is the matter of emergency situations and the use of the mobile phones, not just on the expressway, in every part of the country. I mean, we saw online at one time a young man that helped a woman deliver a baby around Ojota area in Lagos, and he was screaming for help. but nobody was coming to help him. But you found people all around filming with their phones. What do we do in terms of education to change these situations?
Nyota, unfortunately, the story of the average Nigerian has led to one to believe that it is only brute force that people understand. I'm sorry, it's shown that many times, without question, that is the only thing that they understand. Take, for instance, the Ojota bus stop, popular Ojota bus stop in Lagos. It is only when there are soldiers and Black Marias, as we call them, stationed at that bus stop do you see a mad rush for the two pedestrian bridges. Any other day, you see people doing a 100-meter dash across multiple lanes in trying to get from one side of the road to the other. There was another day many years ago where a vehicle plunged into the Lagos Lagoon on 3rd Mainland Bridge. The traffic extended from the Unilag waterfront all the way to Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. Now, if you're familiar with Lagos, that's a distance of almost, maybe 14, 20 kilometers. And it was caused predominantly by people who were parking on the bridge trying to get a glimpse of the vehicle and the extrication process. So Nigerians must stop this rubbernecking, trying to look at situations or trying to be viral or trying to live stream everything. If you cannot help, if you're not in a position to render any kind of help, you must move on as quickly as possible in order to ensure that the road is as free as possible. Unfortunately, what I suspect might happen is that we might need to start arresting and prosecuting people for, I don't know, for anything, but maybe even obstruction of justice, obstruction of emergency services. That might really bring an end to this scourge, because it's becoming a rather unfortunate phenomenon. When accidents happen, the vast majority of the people on the scene, probably 7 out of 10 people on the scene, are people with mobile phones trying to catch glimpses and recordings of everything that has happened.
All right. Thank you so much, Tunde. Thank you. We do hope that Joshua comes out of this much better and real quick too, so that he gets back to his game and gets back to living, first of all. And our condolences to those that have lost loved ones in that accident. Thank you, Tunde. Babatunde Koiki is our sports editor on News Central, but we'll take a moment and we'll come back. We'll be looking at other stories. To stay with us. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, here's a recap of our top stories. Power supply disrupts nationwide as national grid collapses. Former River State Governor Nyesom Wike says Governor Fubara is free to join APC, but warns defection won't guarantee election victory. And UN mission reveals dire conditions in Sudan's El-Fasher after RSF takeover. US airstrikes in northern Nigeria have rattled the economy, putting pressure on the naira and pushing up Nigeria's Eurobond yields as investors rethink the country's risk profile. Oil production remains steady and Brent prices rose above $63 a barrel. Still, Nigeria is struggling to sell its crude amid weak demand and stiff competition. Finance Minister Wale Edun says the strikes will bring long-term stability, citing recent GDP growth as proof of resilience. But supply chain disruptions in the north have increased fuel imports, putting strains on foreign reserves and risking a rebound in inflation. Joining me in the studio is Zari Yusuf, a former national coordinator of Middle Belt Patriots. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And virtually we're being joined by Professor Simeon Na, an economist and public affairs analyst. Thank you for joining us, Prof.
Good evening and compliments of the season.
Same to you. I can see the lights blinking behind you, but I don't think the economy is going to be making you smile soon.
I don't mind.
Okay.
I'm not operating with the economy of Nigeria.
Okay, Prof. We'll be coming back to you in a bit. Just hold on there. Let me start with the security analyst here. Insecurity affects daily lives. We know that. Right. I mean, we all agree that it does. Movement and life generally is disrupted by insecurity, right?
That's right.
And for one who's been in the Middle Belt and coordinating all of these things, how would you characterize the U.S. airstrike, the U.S.-backed airstrike, let's put it that way, the U.S.-backed airstrike in Sokoto? Would you call it strategic? Would you call it tactical or symbolic?
It's strategic. Well, I'd call it all three. First of all, I'd say it's a welcome development. Sokoto, basically, a lot of people have asked the question. Let me even start off by trying to answer. A lot of people would say, if it was all about a Christian genocide, why Sokoto? Why not Benue? Why not Southern Kaduna? Why not Plateau and all of that? And I think the answer to that question is, why not Sokoto? Okay? There is a notorious group, Laukurawa, primarily, that a lot of people think maybe Boko Haram seems to be the most dangerous terrorist organization to a lot of people. But when you look at the human casualties, the number of people killed, they may not necessarily be. The strike in Sokoto is strategic. In a psychological sense, it tells now think of it as, say the Middle Belt is the front line, the depot that supplies whatever wastes the lives of people in the Middle Belt comes from there. Laukurawa did not, and let me just put it this way, I think the official proscription of that group as a terrorist organization came about maybe a week or so after a certain bill that sought to expand the jurisdiction of Sharia suffered defeat at the National Assembly. Prior to that, they were still in the country, but they were under the, say, maybe they were invited by people, help protect us against cattle rustlers and all of that. So, but what I'm trying to say to you is, for a long time, there have been recruitments by this group, okay? Laukurawa in Sokoto. I think they are stronger in Sokoto than you would find them in Zamfara and all of that. And so I think it is strategic in the sense that it sends a message that we are not necessarily facing you now in the trenches, we're coming home to you wherever you are. So it's, think of that place as a depot, and that is how strategic that strike is.
Because some would have said that the strike should have gone towards the Zamfara, Katsina axis, where it looks like they've had more frequent banditry attacks.
Well, like I said, the depot should be all calm and quiet. So there may not necessarily be the activity that looks like there is a lot of terrorism around here. It's a breeding ground. And this group is not just some local individuals who just happen to have access to arms. No, they are not. As far back, I think, as 2012, 2013, they have engaged the Malian army. And they were not only defeated, but the Malians made it difficult for them to stay there. And when you go through certain reports, certain surveys and all of that, you'd realize that Nigeria, of all of their movements across the Sahel, seem to be a place they feel more at home. So
this Laukurawa is a movement from Mali all the way down. Is that what you're?
That's right. They've been a notorious terrorist group.
I'll come back to you. Let's get to Prof. The matter of Prof. Sonna, if you can hear me there, this matter of insecurity and its effect on the economy. He's mentioned a couple of things that insecurity seems to the effects it brings on the economy. For their bandits, it's about acquiring equipment. So they spend money. So some economies are thriving and some other economies are suffering. But in this case, we just had that airstrike, and some are concerned about the economics of that airstrike on the Nigerian space. What do you have to say?
Well, let me start from the security angle, although I'm not a security expert. He said part of the things I had in mind. The strike in Sokoto was strategic because in strategy, there's an element of surprise. A lot of people expected, like you said, that they hit Zamfara or other places. But you know that America has threatened for some time now to strike. And you don't expect them to continue to wait for them in Zamfara or in Sambisa or what have you. They would have moved to a quiet state, a quiet place where they think the security operatives might not know. Recall that the day of the strike, Niger patrol team said that they saw Laukurawa people running away from the side of the district. And the intel that were shared made us know that most of the equipments were stockpiled in that area that was attacked by America. Having said that, now the impact it will have in our economy is that foreign investors are going to hang on, stay by the side to watch the events as they unfold. Because when you have, sorry?
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead, Prof.
Yeah, when you have insurgency in a country, some other countries may have informed their citizens to be careful of, working in Nigeria, more so the northern part of Nigeria. And so people that have businesses in such areas may be wary of coming to Nigeria this time around, and movement of goods and services to that area will equally have some problems for now. So it's going to affect the economy. And like you said, the inflation is coming up a little bit because the food inflation that was going down will now have a spike because most of the food items that are coming from the north, the people may have issues now going to farms and bringing those things down south. So it's going to have an impact. But let's watch events as they unfold. If they are able to ensure that these insurgencies are kept at bay, then the inflation rate might be for a little period, and the economy will bounce back.
Prof, you said
now people will have confidence in the economy that they can sleep with their two eyes closed.
Prof, you said something, if they're able to keep this insurgency at bay, it's been going on for decades. If they, when you say they here, who are you talking about? The Nigerian state or the foreign the foreign support team, like the US?
You can see my hand, both. The foreign support, because they are the people now that have been, although we had intel too, that the Air Force has been doing some exercise in the last 1 month or so that has led to some of them now to start begging. I read a tweet of former President IBB that said, no, they should not consider, these begging from bandits. Rather, they should smoke them out. So I think the heat has been on them, and with the foreign partners coming in now and intensifying that heat, I think it's a matter of time before these guys will run away. See, let me tell you for free, and you can check that. The headsmen or the Boko Haram or whatever they call themselves, Lakura, they have not won in any fight. It's only this ragtag fight, hit and run. They tried it in, what is it called again? The Congo DR. They couldn't succeed. They tried in a small republic after a Republic of Benin, and they were driven out. So at the end of the day, one-on-one war, they don't survive. It's only this their guerrilla war that they're surviving. So if they are hit now, they are going to move their base from Nigeria to another place.
Okay, let me come back to Mr. Yusuf. Mr. Yusuf, he's mentioned that they tried it after Benin, that's Togo, and they did not succeed. But here in Nigeria, we've seen this happen, and we've heard rumors and reports of them using sophisticated equipment, seeing helicopters dropping things to them. That means they have sponsors.
That's right.
So if we have this kind of attacks, what happens to identifying those sponsors and dealing with them so that another group doesn't just spring up from out of this? And what is the guarantee of no effect on Nigeria's sovereignty and borders, territorial integrity?
Now you see the difference between their presence in Nigeria with how it was, say, in Central African Republic, where sort of they were engaged to fight the anti-Balaka militia, where in Mali they engaged the military then sort of possibly to run over the country and all of that, is that the governments of those countries didn't have elements that were sympathetic to those individuals. They are primarily composed of the Fulani ethnic nationality. When you go back 10, 15 years, you would realize that it is said that because of cattle rustling, some people invited them to help them fight against cattle rustlers. But prior to that time, they had a track record of being terrorists. I mean, their international CV in terrorism was a rich one. Local people cannot access groups like that. It will take the hands of politicians in high places because it involves a lot of money. You were talking about arms. They use armed drones. Okay, so they are sophisticated. But of course, some people try to lighten it up to make it look as if it's just AK-47s, RPGs, and all of. No, they are sophisticated. They have engaged as far back as 2012. They have faced a conventional army. They just failed. But in Nigeria, like I said, some people will tell you that it seems more of a comfortable abode for them. They can't make trouble in Sokoto, but they are heavily sponsored. And that is the reason why you would realize that although they have been terrorists for a long time across the Sahel, fighting in Mali, fought in Central African Republic, but all of the while they stayed in Sokoto, all of the while they employed people, they didn't look like terrorists. And like I said, it may just be a mere coincidence, but just a week after a bill was beaten out for, the widening of the scope of Sharia, they became different. Their modus operandi changed. And I'm thinking, in my opinion, they are more dangerous than Boko Haram. The reason is simple. The fact that in the Middle Belt, there happened to be a Christmas, except, of course, the terrorist attack on, the Egon cultural carnival that happened yesterday, where 3 trucks ran into people and claimed that they all lost brakes. The Middle Belt has been quiet. And I would attribute it because looking at the warnings that came, a lot of it would have happened either the night of Christmas, either the day after, because a couple of times it had happened on the eve. So it looks as if on the eve, a lot of people would be at alert. But then it went quiet. And I don't want to disconnect it with the fact that there was that fireworks in Sokoto that Christmas night. What that means is that is the base from which, in my understanding, all of the Islamists operational in the Middle Belt are being released from. But it's unlikely that you would see any activity of fighting or killing people. It's just, like I said, it's supposed to be calm and quiet. And I think the attack is strategic. We would know who the sponsors are when there are more attacks and there are eliminations. And I would say, and I would risk being accused of generalizing things, but whoever it is you find proposing the idea of negotiating with them, appeasing them, listening to them or whatsoever is frankly not far away from sponsorship of these terrorists. It doesn't matter whether he's in the military or whether he's a politician.
So let me get back to you, Prof. Sonda. You see, you mentioned something earlier, and somebody else had mentioned that in that area where the airstrikes took place, there's little or no government present in terms of infrastructure, hospitals, roads, and pipe-borne water, electricity. And this might just be, going from what Yusuf has said, this might just be grounds for this group to find sympathizers. Should government be rethinking its strategy? Government at all levels, unless they are sympathizers with this terrorist.
Well, I don't want to approach it from that angle because even the people that are in that area cannot sympathize with them because it's not easy for them. But let me say this succinctly. Like rightly mentioned, you will discover that there have been no attack recently in Sokoto. Recall that during the last regime, I don't know why we are avoiding that, the former president opened our borders and asked all of them to troop into the country without visas. And this was when some of them got into the country. Their operational base is Sokoto. That is a fact that cannot be denied. And, the airstrike, it was discovered that most of their equipment were destroyed in that area. Yes, you know that there are a lot of, terrorist organizations that are operating in Nigeria now. You have the Lakarawa, you have the Boko Haram, you have the ISIS, you have even the Metiala, because they carry AK-47 around. So all of them should be grouped. The president said all of them should be grouped as terrorist organizations. So at the end of the day, now they are given the impression that that area is quiet, and because of that, they made it the operational base. Then from there, they moved to attack other cities and other states of the Federation. So because you know that America, they have their intel is superlative. So they cannot just start attacking areas indiscriminately. Recall that after the attack, there were grapevines that civilians were killed. And these are people that don't want this attack to continue, because we have had now that no individual, no citizen that is not part of this terrorist organization that was hurt. So the people that had injuries and that were decimated at the end of the day were this Lakaran group.
All right.
And recall that they have been operating in Para, so, and they just hit and run back to their base.
All right, Prof. I really want to thank you. Yusuf, just before we let you go, if there was an advice you'll give to the Nigerians, because I do know the Nigerian military is on top of their game. Now, I do know that we have superlative intelligence also, and I know that we have the equipment to do this. But in terms of sympathizers within the rank and file, what would be your advice in the next 30 seconds?
First of all, I think, let me begin by the former governor of Kaduna State, Nasiru El-Rufai. Basically, when I see what the Lakurawas have achieved in Sokoto State in terms of their recruitment and in terms of the manpower they have put together and how they've terrorized other parts, I'm reminded of how he gloated on national TV of tracing fighters to Mali, tracing Fulanis to Mali. He didn't give an idea on what cover he traced them. Now I'm one of those who believe they are elements of these groups, because not long after he claimed he paid them, the pattern of massacres in Kaduna State changed. But it looks as if there are certain people that seem to be above the law. As long as elements like that move around freely, there is a tendency of compromising the attempts of the Nigerian army at every phase, or the government, when it comes to eliminating these criminals. Now, the military has a responsibility of weeding out, parts of them, especially in terms of their strategic operations. When there is a leak, trace it out. An example is where children were kidnapped and somebody said there was an order to withdraw people. So I think, to a large extent, we should, much as we eliminate the ones in the bush, there must be a similar treatment given to those in government. The likes of Sheikh Gumi, if the country was functional, the likes of Sheikh Gumi, Nasiru El-Rufai, they should be behind bars or taken out or possibly live on exile. But unfortunately, you find a policeman standing behind a man who speaks on behalf of terrorists simply because he has some religious, pedigree or whatsoever he wishes to call it.
We've had here in the studio Ziri Yusuf, former National Coordinator, Middle Belt Patriot and a security expert. And also joining us virtually was Professor Simeon, economist and public affairs analyst. Thank you, gentlemen, for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you so much.
And we wish you well. Thank you, Prof. Moving on to other stories. Security. All right, Prof. Other stories were security related. At least 3 people have died and several others injured after clashes between security operatives and suspected drug dealers in Katsina metropolis. The violence broke out in the Kwabon, Dorawa, Ongawa, Nayali area when officers tried to arrest a suspect, Uzairu, also known as Kuda, and seized drugs and his phone. Witnesses say Kuda insisted, called for backup and was shot dead in the struggle. Angry youths later set fire to an NSCDC outpost and several motorcycles. The police also confirmed that stray bullets during Kuda's funeral claimed 2 more lives. Authorities are urging the public to remain calm and avoid taking the law into their hands. The Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors has warned of a possible nationwide shutdown of medical services due to the federal government's failure to implement a previously signed memorandum of understanding. NARD Secretary General Dr. Shuaibu Ibrahim urged senior medical professionals to intervene, saying the country risks a total indefinite strike. The association said the government and Ministry of Health have repeatedly missed deadlines to honor the agreement, despite doctors suspending a 21-day strike on November 29th after the MOU was signed. Now, Nigeria's healthcare sector has been plagued by recurring strikes by the National Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors between 2015 and now. There have been a total of 12 strikes. The longest single strike lasted 63 days in 2021. Let's take a look at the timeline from 2015 till date. In 2015, for instance, the year began with a bang as doctors at the UCH, as the University UCH Ibadan embarked on a 108-day strike, while their colleagues at Lautech laid down tools for 5 months, citing state-level funding issues and call duty arrears. In 2016, a national warning signed a 7-day strike in June over residency training guidelines and salary relativity concerns. In 2017, we had a budget battle continuing with a 10-day strike in September, highlighting non-payment of salaries and funding for residency training. In the year 2020, the pandemic brought new challenges. The doctors protested lack of COVID-19 equipment and hazard allowance disputes with strikes in June and in September. In 2021, a record-breaking 63-day strike from August to October, sparked by massive arrears and non-payment of death in service insurance. An earlier 10-day strike in April was a precursor to the tumult. In 2023, the welfare fight continued with a strike from July 26 to August the 12th, demanding a 200% salary increase. 2025, the latest strike, dubbed TAKES 2.0, began in November 1st and lasted 29 days. Unpaid 25% to 35% arrears and the Lokoja 5 dismissals were the spark. A new strike is being threatened for today, tomorrow, that's December the 29th and the 30th. This cycle of strikes, MOU and broken promises has become an all too familiar cycle. The Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors are demanding change. But will the government listen? Well, we're being joined tonight. We're supposed to have the president of the association join us. I'm sure we'll get to hear as soon as we do have that connection. We'll take a moment. I'll be back. To stay with us. Welcome back to the 6th edition, and we bring you news just coming in. Has it that the national grid has been restored? We had told you earlier that the national grid experienced a collapse this afternoon, December 29, 2025, resulting in a national blackout as power outage plummeted to near zero. But we'd like to let you know, news has it that it has been restored, and so power will be restored to the various parts of the country. Now, some stories in Africa. The United Nations has completed its first mission to El-Fasher in North Darfur, revealing civilians living in extremely unsafe conditions after the city fell under the control of the Rapid Support Forces. Witnesses report severe shortages of food, water, and medicinal care, with many residents showing signs of trauma from ongoing violence and displacement. Nearly 89,000 people have fled the city to nearby towns, leaving behind homes and basic services. UN agencies warn of heightened risks to children and call for safe evacuation corridors and unrestricted humanitarian access. The international community is urging the immediate aid delivery to prevent further suffering as Sudan's conflict escalates. And polls have closed in the Central African Republic's presidential election, marking the end of voting in a high-stakes contest closely watched at home and abroad. Electoral officials say polling stations shut as scheduled across most of the country, following a day of voting that was reported to be largely calm, despite logistical and security challenges in some areas. Incumbent President Faustin Archange Touadéra is seeking another term in office after recent constitutional changes removed presidential term limits, a move strongly opposed by opposition parties and civil society groups. Critics argue that the vote lacks a level playing field, while the government insists the process is lawful and transparent. No official results have been announced. but provisional tallies expected in the coming days. Observers say the outcome could shape the country's fragile political stability and security outlook. Meanwhile, Somalis have staged protests in Mogadishu and other cities following Israel's decision to recognize Somaliland as an independent state. Demonstrators waved Somali flags and chanted slogans rejecting the move, insisting that Somalia remains one, united and indivisible. The protesters described the recognition as a violation of Somalia's sovereignty and international law. Somalia's federal government has condemned Israel's action, calling it null and void, while urging the international community to respect the country's territorial integrity. Lawmakers and civil society groups warned the decision could inflame tensions in the Horn of Africa and embolden separatist movements. President Donald Trump says talks to end the Russia-Ukraine war are in the final stages after hosting Zelensky and speaking with Putin. President Trump claims progress on a nearly 20-point peace plan with both sides wanting an end. Zelensky's team says 90% of the draft is agreed, with main issues around eastern Ukraine's Donbas region. He stressed security guarantees and swift action, but gave no timelines. However, despite the talks, Russia continues heavy attacks, a sign of existing deep mistrusts.
Big deal. Gotta get it done. Too many people dying, and I think both presidents want to make a deal. I don't have deadlines. I have, you know what my deadline is? Getting the war ended. Deadlines. You believe that? The agreement is going to say, but there will be a security agreement. It'll be a strong agreement. And the European nations are very much involved in it. They'll be very much involved.
China has launched Justice Mission 2025 live fire drills, simulating a full blockade of Taiwan's port. The People's Liberation Army deployed 90 aircraft and dozens of warships. Beijing called the surge a stern warning against recent U.S. arms sales to the island. Taiwan immediately condemned the maneuvers as military intimidation and reported military activity, branding China a destroyer of peace. China warned that external forces are pushing the region towards war. Taipei responded by deploying rapid response units to monitor its coastline and defend its sovereignty. The blockade drills have already forced the rerouting of global shipping and commercial flights.
任何在台湾问题上越线挑衅的恶劣行径，必将遭到中方的坚决回击。任何阻挠中国实现统一的险恶图谋，都不会得逞。
Nigeria's external reserves have risen by $4.39 billion year-on-year to $45.24 billion, reflecting a 10.75% increase, and that's according to the Central Bank of Nigeria. The reserves weakened in the first half due to heavy debt servicing and FX market interventions, but recovered steadily in the second half, crossing the $40 billion mark and sustaining the gains. The CBN attributed the rebound to improved transparency, FX backlog clearance, and stronger inflows, while analysts say higher reserves support FX supply and ease pressure on the naira. Meanwhile, global equities are on track to close 2025 at record highs as expectations of further U.S. Federal Reserve rate cuts buoy risk appetite, while the dollar hovers near a 3-month low. The MSCI's World Equity Index was flat in early European trade, but remains high, nearly 21% year to date. European stocks touched fresh intraday highs, while Wall Street futures eased slightly from recent peaks. Investors continue to favor equities, including AI-linked stocks, amid easing inflation risk. Gold and silver pulled back as traders booked profits. though both metals remain on course for their strongest annual gains in decades. That's all on 6th edition for today, but here's a recap of our major stories. Power supply has been restored after the national grid collapsed earlier today. Mr. Wike says Fubara is free to join APC, but warns that defection doesn't guarantee election victory. And UN mission reveals dire conditions in Sudan El-Fasher after RSF takeover. Let's hear from you. Send us your eyewitness report. Send it to the WhatsApp number showing on your screen. Follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, GoTV channel 23, StarTimes channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Thanks for watching. I'm Neo Taigbe, and I'll see you tomorrow.